Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I'm Frozen Melon, and today we are doing some SpellRogue of the Analyzing series. I'm probably going to do this for a lot of other games as well, because I kind of like it, and it kind of falls into my wheelhouse of I'm obsessive, I'm compulsive, and the fact that I think about everything way too much type personality traits that I have. So today we'll be looking at Hazel, and we're going to do an entire breakdown of spells, stuff like that, and yeah.
How can I help?
We're just going to like work our way through stuff. We've had some really broken runs with Hazel, and I think a lot of them really depend on essentially rolling the right stuff when you need to, and also have the ability to keep that generation going as well. And there are many different ways of playing Hazel, I think also. A lot of it revolves around just basic power scaling, like at the actual power scaling itself, but you can get some kind of semi-defensive builds going on the rarity as well, so it does have quite a good mix of things, and I probably would say it's the most intuitive character to kind of start playing in regards to just health management, resource management, dice management, and can really get you used to kind of making things work. So, we're going to look at the spell sets to begin with. We're going to start off looking at Regrowth, which is your basic return die with +1, which is kind of nice. The upgrades are kind of also really cool as well. Personally, if I was kind of looking at this, I'd probably always go with this, because it allows you to maintain die with the sapling bonus, but yeah, it's just a really kind of good basic spell. Earth Spike is just your basic attack, although it is kind of very frustrating to start with because you can only attack the front enemy, which means if you have a high health total at the front, which some fights tend to do, you kind of get locked into just killing them first early game. And then your standard block, which is kind of good. 5 for 5 at best is what you're going to get out of that, which isn't bad, but the fact you can switch between odds and evens, and this gets +1, it's a really good starting one to go through, and I recommend a lot of people test out Hazel to begin with if you're new to the game and want to figure things out, especially with the first relic you get, which gives you that sort of daze to help you defend against early game stuff. Can be really important and is kind of a really underrated relic in my opinion. As you can tell, I do have very different relics I've tried with Hazel in the past. Now moving over to the next one, the Beast Within. This is one of my favourite starts because of the recyclability that Hazel seems to have very much into that nature aspect, and kind of follows that sort of theme with it, where it's just like I roll a dice to 5 or a 6, I spend it in this, so -4 from it, and then I get to go and roll it again. The cool thing about this is Beast Within kind of does two things. You can either get more uses out of it, or you can actually get some extra DPS about it, and I love this flexibility with this particular spell. It is really, really good, and like once you're trying to get into this sort of dice management style, this is a great set to go into as well. Next up, oh yeah, defense just is actually pretty good. Like even at 5 countdown, you're getting 7 and 6. That's a good amount of armor as well with Bristle. Moving on to Mulch. Again, I kind of like this. What you end up doing is you return the die with -1, and you get +2 somewhere else on the lowest dice, which, again, it gives that flexibility, it allows you to recycle things, and I'm going to keep using that word quite a lot. It's going to become really terrible later. Rampage is a brilliant spell, in my opinion, of just the fact that you get that extra hit as well after you turn around and have basically depleted it. So in essence, it's 12 damage to the front enemy, if you want to focus it there. And Shelter. I'm going to say this with Shelter. Although the negativity of it being 6 is kind of high, the deplete effect of getting 2 Blessing is kind of an upside, which allows you to kind of set up for the next turn or sort of other reroll turns and stuff like that. And we'll kind of talk about the Blessing mechanic as well, because it does give that +2 to the next dice roll. And it was changed since the beta for when I was playing it, and I think it's a really good positive change for the game as well. It really allows you to kind of immediately get some good things. Next up, looking at Earth Song setup, which gives you basically +X to a random die and then return the die with half the value. So basically I put a 5 in, something else gets a 5, and then I get a 3 back. So that is really, really good. I'll do a 4 and get 2 back, and so on and so forth, which allows you to generate extra die, as well as also kind of increase the value of the dies that you have in your kind of hand as such. Twin Leaf, again, this is a really good setup spell for immediate power scaling. So if you do get power generation in some way early on, you get twice as much value from it. I do like that a lot. And Foundation. I like this spell. It doesn't give you as much block as the rest, so you're not really as defensive to begin with. but the extra power allows you to be more offensive, and then you do drain and lose it in the turn, but still that is really good. And I will admit, drain is a negative effect, so if you do get a chance to get rid of this drain, you can actually scale power off this. So like the negative removal potion can be really useful with this as a kind of cool combo to start with. Now, we'll look at the artifacts, because it's always kind of nice to have a look at these. Granite Orb is actually underrated in my opinion, even I underrate it myself. Just the daze to all enemies, which just lowers their attack DPS for those first kind of 2 turns, is really, really good. It's some of those things we don't really notice it until you notice it, and that's only when you get one shot by a boss as soon as you hit stage 2 or 3. These Steelforged Greaves, they are actually really good now. At one point they just gave you an extra power. Now they scale power every 3 turns, so it is sort of slow power scaling, which can really help if you've got ways to leverage that as well. And it's one of those things where if you know what build you're going for, and you get the stuff early on, it's worth picking this up. Gaia's Grasp, dice per twist between turns of the sapling. So every 10 spells you cast, your lowest die becomes a sapling die. This just allows you to maintain die between turns, and this is something we'll talk about with Hazel as well as some of the spells, is in some cases you are better off not spending the die if you can maintain it rather than actually going through with that. Start battle gaining 4 blessing, that's just really good for your start of battle effects and your immediate first turn and so on and so forth, so it's not really need to explain how good that is. The coup de grace, on enemy death, applying 2 mark to the rest of them, is actually nice. It gives that sort of ability to just deal a bit more damage in one turn if you can kind of just wait to finish something off until the next turn and then throw that in, and then basically everything's getting an extra 50% of damage, which is kind of nice. Next up is the basically Shimmering Totem, which gives you basically turn 2 a Glimmer die. Now Glimmer is something which is unique to Hazel, and basically on a die spent you basically get +1 to a random die. And this is why I talked about this earlier, like Earth Song, Mulch, and Regrowth, as well as also, where was it? Sting. The ability to recycle die like this is kind of one of the things that I do like about Hazel, and it really kind of blends into this Glimmer mechanic as well, where you get that more sustained value, as well as also the sort of maintain of buffs, which is something Lapis can also do as well. But yeah. Next up, let's have a look at our spell list available. I didn't write through the menu, I could have just clicked the book, but yeah. And move over straight to Hazel's setup. So, I always go with the rarity sort on here. I do have one I do not have currently, but we'll worry about that later. We've gone through all the setup spells, so let's just move over to our immediate ones. So, beforehand, this is something we will discuss. Blessing used to be one of those things where it would just do at the end of the turn +1 to every die, based on how much blessing you had. So you had 6 blessing, everything you put +6. Now blessing is +2 on the next dice roll, which means spending blessing is actually kind of a worthwhile investment in some situations. That is basically if you don't feel like the extra +2 is going to have an impact, you can start spending it. Not like Anointed Impact, it's a good damage spell, it's okay early game, it's useful, and if you've got Blessing, you can get some really good extra DPS about it. The other thing is getting an extra charge as well allows you to really repeat the use out of it, although you do need some dice generation in some way to help that, or just extra damage is all good as well for an upgrade. But it is an early game spell. It's one thing you'll pick up and you'll change again later. So if you get something that's better than this early game that you can use, probably not your best one to pick up. Next one, Blossom. I like this spell. It's a utility spell, so it's not going to be a high priority for you immediately, but it will be something probably in sort of that sort of second and third phases where if it works the build, it's going to work really well. The main use of this is basically just getting more dice value out there. Essentially it gives you +3 to other stuff immediately, which you can spend 3 to do, or you can get +6 out of it, which is what you're really aiming for. And suddenly you're sacrificing a die to increase the value of other die. And the nice thing with the overflow effects that you can have with the die, they can generate more die as well and repeat the whole process, and plus you're going to get a sapling die at the end of that if you spend this 3 times, which is really good. The countdown effect is also really good as well. Essentially you can get an extra +2 out of this when you do cast it, so that could be quite useful if you're specifically targeting countdown as well. So both really good upgrades. Boulder Toss. Now, This itself, as an early game spell, is a little bit too expensive. Now, this is something I mentioned quite a lot with Azure as well, with the whole game and dice economy and things like that. When I say it's like, how much does this spell cost me to cast? And an average dice value always comes up about 3.5 when you're rolling dice. It's just a mathematical way of going with it. And if you add those two together, you get 7. I can't cast this for 2 die easily in most cases. So more than likely or not, I am not casting, I'm using all my die to cast this turn, which either I'm hopefully killing the opponent or I'm not. And seeing as it only does the front enemy, then the adjacent one next to it, I don't get much value out of this. And this is why, again, don't recommend these sort of spells to begin with. Late game, when you got more value dice and you can leverage this a little bit more, absolutely fine. Probably maybe worth a pickup in some cases, but you're probably going to get better options long term. So it's something to watch out for. Bramble Growth. This itself, in a sense, is a utility spell. It's not an offensive spell, and it's not a defensive spell. The reason I say that with it overall is because the fact that this Thorns requires you to take a hit, which means you need defensive tools to begin with, and then it starts dealing damage. So if you don't have a decent defense set up and you're not doing anything else, then this is probably not great, and enemies will outscale you. But if you do have good defense, and you have scaling defense, you can pick this up and you can have a very fun turtle game, and I've got a few of those up on the channel as well where we've really broken the spell and had fun with Thorns. But other than that, yeah, basic standard upgrades, kind of cool, kind of useful. Carapace. This spell you take every single time as a defensive option. Either or upgrade is absolutely brilliant for this. It is just really, really good value. I will say that now, there is no difference between this. If you see it and there's no other defensive options, you're probably taking this, and you'll probably take this above certain other options as well. And it's highly recommended. The sap doesn't really matter if you cast this last in the turn either, but you can get some really good value for defense out of it. If we're just putting a 2 in there, that's the reason why. Consecrate, again, utility spell. It basically pays for itself with the roll, and you gain a blessing. You can't say more than that. The nice variation on this is if you need low-cost stuff to increase in value, you can get that. The upgrade can allow you to get a higher value die. Just remember the roll will happen before the gain a blessing, so it doesn't increase in by 2 value. Or you can get 3 blessing, which is even better, because it means the next 3 dice rolls will get 6 value total, which is very useful. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, get your offensive defense set up first before you think about the support stuff to go along with it. Earthsbane. I like this spell. It's not amazing, it's not terrible, but it has the flexibility of giving you some armor while still dealing damage. I don't think you're ever giving this an extra 2 spells on it, ever. You're probably just going for the extra damage. Just simple as, but you might get better options in this offensively. But it is not a bad pickup. Earthquake. This is pretty good as sort of like that other offensive spell. It gives you the option to hit everything rather than just one target. It also benefits if you do cast it twice to gaining that blessing as well. So it has those other bonuses. Both these upgrades to give you basically more value to the current dice you have, and also the extra damage, are both really good and all depend on what you're trying to do with your build more than anything else. But more damage is more damage, and I always like having more damage. Fixation. No point taking this. Unless you've got a full blessing build and you can take advantage of this overall, I probably wouldn't be taking this. The damage upgrade is kind of negligible as well. Again, it's just dice economy, and it's only 1 hit on this. You don't get really repeat value out of it, which is kind of annoying in most cases. It's not a great spell, but can be useful if you need it, maybe like as a particular type. Fleeting Might. I probably underrate this spell just because of power gain immediately, then losing it is never a good feeling for me, because I like scaling numbers. I like numbers getting bigger. But this can be really good in the sense that if you just want to burst someone down for 1 turn, you can get a maximum, just on the base value of this, of 12 extra power out of that, which if you get multi-hit attacks can really leverage this, and we'll see someone later where you can just like blow something up just by casting this maybe once or twice. So there is reason that this is actually pretty good, but it is a utility spell. In particular, like, although these icons say what they are on them, I will be claiming what they are in my mind and how you'd intend to use them compared to the same sort of classification of spells, just so you're aware. Flourish. We've used this in the past and we've had some brilliant ideas with it. The main thing with this is it rolls 2 5s or 6s, so it pays for itself on cast, which is very, very good. And then you're getting a random plus effect on it as well. So if you have ways to keep generating other kind of charges for these spells, you can do really well. This upgrade is terrible just because you're probably spending a good amount of spells to go into this to get the spells back, to then try and chant with the dice, and probably not the best, but 3 extra spell charges on something could be really good. Depending on what you're going, but you're probably not upgrading that. And that's one thing I remember. Some of these spells you're getting up, you're never upgrading them anyway, so it's not really that much what the upgrade is, it's what the base spell does. Force of Nature. A 3 to deal 4 damage, and you can gain some armor if you cast a utility spell. The issue I have with this spell, it's awkward to cast. Like, the damage increase is nice, the utility is nice as well, and defense that you get out of it if you cast other utility spells, but it's 3 casts. It's nearly impossible to cast consistently enough to actually matter. Gleaming Exterior. I like this spell. I probably overrate this spell in many different ways. It's had many iterations in the past, and now it's got 2 charges on it, and I can do this to 4 to 6. I really overrate this spell quite a lot because of the fact that I get the blessing out of it as well, which is good. It's just 4 blessing on 2 casts for 4, which basically means I get an extra 4 back on the next dice roll. So really good value. Rolling a die on this on deplete seems good in a sense, but you're forcing yourself to stick with that having to be a 6. If you can generate 6s, which Hazel can do pretty consistently in some cases, especially with blessings, things like that as well. Not bad, but otherwise, yeah, probably just going for this more variability upgrade if you can get it. Javelin. Again, it's just awkward to cast. Simple as. I don't need to explain that. Like, damage, the thing, like, we saw something else that was better than this to cast, and I still didn't recommend taking that, like, all the time, so this is just not as great. Kill Shot. I will say it now, Kill Shot, I probably would say that I don't value this very much, but it is actually pretty good. The main thing on it is it's 4 damage for 4, which is still really good. You can drop it down to 2, and you can get bonus damage if the target's below 50% health. So it's a really good secondary spell, which you get even more damage out of it, which can help finish off targets a little bit quicker than you normally would be able to. So it's one of those ones where I'm saying, probably don't underestimate that. My only question on this one, which I still haven't really figured out, is how power scaling works with it. Does it increase this one and this one separately, or does it increase the base value? Is a question. I think it's just overall, it's just once, it doesn't apply it twice, but I've seen it apply twice in other ways, so you never know. The games are never programmed efficiently. Rampart. I like this spell. I've had really good combos with it in the past. The other options to lower other spells by, or another spell by 2 on a cast means it's basically cast for 4, or on 6 rolls lowering its counter by 3 is just a really good increase on what it already does, and I've used this in my infinite turn when I went infinite, which was actually pretty amazing to see as well, because it actually counts the cast, which can really combo with some other relics that you can get as well on casting. So yeah, a good idea to kind of bear that in mind with this one. Other than that, it's not a very good defensive spell, just because it's overly got too many charges for a 6 cast, which most times we cast for at least 2 die on average. Shatter. Front enemy, targeted, deals 2x damage. Can be pretty good early game, but again, that fixation on just being able to cast it on the front enemy can be pretty bad. This deplete effect can be pretty useful if you've got some like 1s to shove into this to kind of just get that 5 or 6 back to play something else. The increase in damage is kind of meh because you end up only hitting the front enemy once with this, which means you're getting a maximum of like 15 damage. As you saw, Kill Shot can deal more than that with the upgrade, or about the same of that, and also be cast for 3 times, so, and is targetable. This is why it's good to kind of recommend looking at different things as well. So power. I like this. It's a good spell. It gives you basic power scaling. Very simplistic. If you get this upgrade, you're getting that extra bit of power every turn when you do deplete it as well, which is nice. And casting it on Blessing Gain really does help you ramp up, and we've used this in the past as well with some of the runs I had before. It is just a great way to power scale, and it's really worth the pickup every single time. It may not stay in your build permanently, but it is really good to have. Spring into action. I love spring into action. You're always going for the double armor gain on this, just because the value in it is insane, especially early game as well. Even into the late game, it is just really efficient to play. The extra power on there is just nice. There is no need for this to be on there. The spell is as good as it will get with just how it is, but the extra power you get from it as well is actually just a nice side bonus. Could increase it, but no, you're going for this extra armor. The armor can be so important, and yeah, it's another defensive one where I say you're probably picking this up every time you see it, along with your carapace as well. You've just got, in essence, such a good amount of armor gain that you can gain with both the upgrades, because you're thinking you're playing this on the low end with your 3s, this with your 4s and 2s and stuff like that, and then your 5s and 6s are going elsewhere, so yeah, so useful. Terraform. It's one of those ones where if you've got the setup for it to be able to like repeatedly, like to use dice and repeat, you can get some really good armor value out of it. It's a bit on the low end. It's not something you pick up just by itself. The extra +2 to a random die, if you put a 6 in there, is also kind of useful. Did have something different in the past, but you know, changes in the game. The upgrade just makes it at value of what the spell should be doing anyway. The extra increase to +3 is kind of nice. You put a 6 in there, but again, you need 6s to be able to use it. Other than that, it's not the best spell, but if you can combo with it, it's actually pretty useful, so bear that in mind. Totem. Totem's expensive for what it does, right? Gaining it and having to put a 2 or 3 die into this just to cast for 8 armor, when we've already gone over, like, get 8 armor for 1 die in some cases with just an upgrade, is very important. The countdown effect could be probably useful in a countdown deck. You're probably never going to get a chance to kind of deplete this until late game anyway, so this doesn't really matter either. So yeah, you can just have better defensive options from Totem that we've already even discussed with just these two here. Like, it's just night and day. Like, okay, I lose on the 2 armor. I'm not even counting the 2 reduction, but yeah. Move along. Bind Grip. I never know what to think about this. The Daze is nice, it helps with defense, it casts for 6, it does 6 damage. It's kind of okay, but it's a bit too expensive. A random die becoming a sapling die is kind of useful. The extra damage in Daze is kind of nice. It's weird. I would say this is probably below average. It's not something you're going to be happy about seeing, but in most cases, you may end up just taking it when you do have it if you've got nothing better out and you need something offensive. The issue is, as early game, this is kind of expensive for you to cast. And yes, I'm classing 1 dice at 6 to be expensive to cast for this effect early game. Just because with damage, you just kind of want to scale and use low-cost stuff and repeat more often. Wild Strikes. This is your payoff card. Simple as. The main thing you're doing on here is probably going for the extra hit, because that allows you to multiply up the power scaling, which is what you really want. This is not bad either, just to make sure you can cast it for 3 if you roll a lot of 6s on repeat. That's probably not bad either. But yeah, mainly going for this extra hit, because that's the whole point. It's a payoff card. You're getting this after you got yourself set up and just need something to benefit what you're doing overall. Autumn Veil. This is another defensive spell that I highly recommend, because of the flexibility and also what you can get out of it overall. I mean, it's basically 9 for 9 on defense, which is a good just, you know, value proposition anyway. And also you get to roll 1 sapling die at the end of the turn when you basically deplete this as well. You have the bonus of being able to gain thorns with it, which is also nice on the defensive style of play. If you've got a lot of defensive tools, it gives you a way to deal damage and scale some damage on when you're getting hit, which can be very good. Or you can just upgrade to gain the immediate armor effect, which means in that case it becomes 6 for 10, which the upgrade is always worth it in this one. Just this upgrade is what you'll probably be taking most of the time, rather than taking this, but there is uses for this as well. And you saw, like, I mean, I've just gave you 3 defensive options, and we looked over Totem, and I'm like, yeah, not really worth it. You have very good amount of defensive tools that are useful, so never settle in when it comes to Hazel, really. Cultivate Might. Again, I like this spell in the sense that it has good flexibility, and the upgrade to make it even more flexible with this isn't bad, right? The issue I have with it, it's either or, right? What I'd rather is you gain X defense, and if you put a 6 in it, you gain a power. That would be a lot better for this. as it is, we already saw, like, there are better power scalings that just do the basic thing of power scaling anyway, that's on a 5 countdown, and they have better ways to gain defense than this as well, even with the upgrade on this as well. So, yeah, it's not really worth it. Fisher, no. I do not need to explain why this is bad. Big attack spells just never really work, and yeah, I think there is maybe 1 or 2 I'd probably recommend, but yeah, just single target, big attack spells, it's just not the best thing you pick up. Fortitude, something that I got a very, very big soft spot for every single time. I love Fortitude. It is something I will pick up even though I probably shouldn't do. And I will say that quite a lot of the time. I will be like, I'm so happy to see it. You're always with Fortitude going for this upgrade because you get the immediate defense bonus, which is a lot easier. It's a lot easier than to deplete as well to gain the extra barrier, which allows you to scale defense consistently through turns. In some cases, meaning that you never need to actually block or cast block spells, which can be fairly important. It means you go more offensive in that late game scenarios and late turns. The increase into this is kind of nice, but it's just way too expensive then to get that deplete, and you really can't do it. There are ways to give, as we've seen before, extra spells, extra charges, so you can maybe trigger that deplete effect a few times per turn. So you may be able to still get the benefit of that and get the benefit of the extra armor than going for this route instead. But you never know. Depending on what you've got and what your setup is, either one could be good, but you are going probably this upgrade if you do take it. Moving along to Gaia's Wrath. Now, this is what I talked about when I said something that does both beforehand when we were looking at Cultivate Might, right? This is either or by basically putting that in there. I have Gaia's Wrath, I put a 6 in it, I gain 2 damage and gain a power. This is a utility spell. It's a worse utility spell than Sow Power, because I have to have a 6. But I can change that by turning it into a 5, and it's basically Sow Power Plus, which again is kind of what you're aiming for, right? Or it doesn't scale as quickly, which is something to bear in mind. Just because you don't get the deplete effect if you do go for that. You can give it more damage immediately to turn it into a more offensive attack spell, but I'd never recommend that. I recommend go straight to the countdown effect and cast this every turn you possibly can do, because the power gain is insane. But yeah. But it's one of those things where it's a utility spell first, not an offensive one, so always bear that in mind. You need other attacks to benefit this, and it means then you're not having other utilities or defensive options alongside it. Moving on, Gleaming Force. Again, this is one where it's a really good offensive attack spell. Straight up, no upgrades needed on this. Just dead serious. This is really good. It's low costing, which means you're going to be able to cast this more often per turn, which means you're going to benefit from a lot more the power scaling with it as well. If you see this and you are a blessing focused deck, or you maybe have some ways to get blessing focused synergies, or even if you don't, is a very good offensive spell early. The only issue is cast management. So this is something I never really talked with Azar on, is for how much I can cast spells. If I cast 10 spells, what's my overall effectiveness of it? This is a little bit more of a detriment because it doesn't deal as much damage per cast as some other ones you can get out there in one turn, but it's a really good spell. Having this glimmer effect is kind of interesting. It gives you the extra dice as well, so there's a bit of, you know, negative, positive gain out of it. Reducing that and giving you more blessing kind of helps if you're going more rerolls in a turn and stuff. You can really benefit from those blessing effects. But overall, this is just something you don't even need to upgrade, and it'll do the job you want it to. Gleaming Mana. It's a utility spell. It's good. It's interesting. If you can roll extra die and stuff and use that gleaming die really effectively, great. If you can't, don't pick it up. Simple as. When you put a dice into here, you want to be gaining like +3 value out of this glimmer die, in my opinion. Otherwise, you've probably got better options to get more value out of other things instead, such as getting more blessing. Right? So it's something to always bear in mind. It's not a bad spell, but it's not amazing either immediately. Graft Mana. Now, this is something where if you want to be able to stockpile dice, and I've used this in the past with other runs, It's a great thing just to chuck 1s and 2s in there and then allow them to scale over the turns. Or even if you don't get them, you got a 1 or a 2 that's already got the sapling effect on it, you can accelerate its growth quite nicely. The upgrade to this is kind of indifferent in my opinion. The extra increase into the 1 to 4 range is also kind of a bit meh. The main thing is this kind of allows you to kind of keep dice per turn if you not cast them anywhere else. So if you do get a lot of 4s or 3s you can't cast, then great, upgrade it. If you've got a lot of 1s and 2s you never cast, maybe go for this. But other than that, it's probably just a good basic spell by itself if you are into that sort of mid-game area and you could benefit from it. Growing Blade. Now, me and Growing Blade have some history. I love the blade. I love it quite a lot. I have used it in several different runs. I have used it in every different way possible. It is great in the sense that if you can start killing stuff early and you get this stuff early, pick it up. It is a brilliant friend and will last you to the late game. You get it late game, it is awful and there's no point picking it up. Pretty much. If you get this in Act 1, take it. Anything after that, don't bother. You'll get better options, and it's simple as that. You just won't gain as much attack out of this, and think of it as every enemy that's not a summon, you get 1 power permanently with this particular spell. Like, that's how good it is. Overall, the upgrades are kind of indifferent. If you're rolling 5s and 6s on consistent, have ways to generate them, that's really good. If you need countdown effect, maybe upgrade to the countdown. Other than that, it's basically, you do what you do with it. Hurl Monolith, too expensive. Straight up. Don't care. I mean, it's not bad. The problem is like, you're probably not defending yourself if you cast this, or you got to set it up over a particular amount of turns, and then you may not even be able to do that. Like, this is the other thing I probably haven't talked about as well, is like how many turns it may take you to cast it on average. And yeah, this takes way too many, and you won't benefit from 20. You'll deal more damage by casting a lower cost spell than you will do casting this every, like, 2 turns. Right? And that's the problem with it. Impure Offering. It has a place. It's got taken away from where it was before. I do miss my original Impure Offering when I used to run these runs, but, you know, I think it's very good. Receiving Vex die can technically not be a bad detriment either in some cases if you do want to generate low cost die and things like that, or have ways to kind of just not use them. Extra Blessing is always nice as well. It allows you to kind of generate those extras, and yeah, extra slots could be good. It's not a bad spell, but chances are you'll probably get better options late game in some cases, but it does have a few niche effects you can use that for. Infuse Scales. This is one of the defensive spells I kind of like and enjoy because it returns the die, and being able to return die is very nice. Returning it with -1 means you can cast this thing twice quite easily. The way you probably want to be using this is to get extra charges on with blessing effects and really rolling it into that, which can be very useful, and it means you can almost set up infinitely with this, with just getting lots and lots of defense per turn. Because if I gain a blessing anyway, I gain a charge on this, and if I gain charges elsewhere and other things like that, we can start having infinite combos with just gaining lots and lots of defense. So yeah, the fact that it returns die means you get good dice value out of it as well, even with -3. Like a 6 to a 3 means it doesn't go in this again, but it can go somewhere else, and you know, 4 for 4, 6 for 6, really good value. Instinct. This is interesting in the sense that this is something where you want to be using it in a case of where you're either killing the enemy or you're not, and I don't really know how to feel. The dichotomy of it is not very good in the sense of how this spell functions. It's kind of like, you want to deal extra damage to them, but you also want to daze them so they don't do damage back to you. But if I'm doing extra damage to them, I want to be removing the enemy from the field, not giving it daze as well, which makes it a very hard thing to kind of say to pick up, and I'd probably be avoiding this unless you can really benefit from applying the marked more than anything else as well. And between that, the 2 costs to cast is kind of, again, semi-difficult. Moving along though. Intervention. This is kind of nice. Again, if you've got any form of blessing scaling, this is going to give you extra power, and this is just insane when you do it. Like changing that to a +1. The other thing on this is the extra armor is nothing to worry about, and then +3 to random die is also really good. This is such a good defensive option in some cases, but I would probably treat this more as a utility tool than a defensive tool. Just so you're aware of that. This has not been my main in getting defense. This will be a way for me to kind of gain a bit of defense power and upgrade a die. I'm probably looking at this as more as the +3 to a random die with the gain of +3 armor. And then maybe I might be able to get that with the blessing effect. Probably I'm even putting this in the blessing effect. But again, it's a so power plus in some cases. And this is why I say that I relate everything to so power when it's this power scaling. Because it's just your bog standard one and everything works on it. Mend magic. This again is one of those things where it's like, giving me extra charges to other spells can be very useful. And again, we've played with this before, and this is one of the things that allowed us to go infinite, was the mend magic. So yeah, bear it in mind. It is something where if you are going to set up, it can be really useful, but other than that, you're never picking this up. It's literally a niche case. You will pick it up when it works for you, and you'll build, and you'll know it will work for you because you'll look at it and go, that's what I want. Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, mend magic, great. Sorry, mend magic. I know you did me well once, and I hate being negative. Nurture. Again, I like this spell. Does exactly what you want it to. Gives +2 to a dice when you put it in. You can increase it so you can have the overflow effect kick in as well. And you give it more charges if that is what you prefer. Again, this is something where you just get more value out of dice, but it takes up a spell slot, which is the problem with it overall. You're probably going to get more value from actually casting something else than just adding this to your repertoire. Oaken Self. Now, I'm not a fan of this spell because it costs 2 dice to cast. Even in mid and late game, it's probably not the best. The deplete effect is very expensive just to get, like, say, even the upgrade on this as well. And even on a +1, like I'm putting there to basically only get 2 armor to then try and roll a 5 or a 6, when I'm probably going to have better options to roll dice and roll 5s or 6 than putting 2 1s into this. So I probably would never take this unless you really, really have to. It's probably sellable material. Being mean again. Onslaught. If you've got a bit of marked synergies and stuff like that, this isn't bad. I'm never going to deny that. It does have some flexibility, and you can even give it extra so it returns it with +1 value as well. So that can also be pretty good, or give it more casts so you can get the dice back and repeat. Does have that flexibility, but other than that, it's not really an early game spell because of just it doesn't really deal much. But it does have a place where if you need something offensive and you've got a bit of mark synergy, you can really use this quite well. Moving along, Prowl. Now this has gone through so many iterations, and I'll say this now, Prowl is so good as a defensive option. As I said, you've got so many good defensive choices. I don't care this is fixed on the fact that you've got to cast it before. We've seen so many ways that you can flexibly try and increase and lower value die with other spells, and some of those were also other defensive tools that you had available to you. The extra increase into the armor is really, really good value, and you'll probably only be casting this at the end. Remember, if I got a 5 and a 4, I put the 4 in here, I get to cast it again because that other 5 will become a 4 because of this effect. Really good flexibility. The other benefit of this thing is I can gain power from it as well. And again, when I was talking about so power on the other thing, I'm getting 8 armor, which is the thing I really care about, more than I actually care about the power gain, but this could really help me just get an extra bit of power out of myself every turn to help me scale into that later turns and late game as well. Highly recommend picking this up in some cases. Well, in probably most cases as well if you do see it, but only if you've got no other defensive tools already set up. Gotta remember that. If you've already got really good defensive tools and you work your build, value this a little bit lower, but it is really good value for what it is. Move along, Pulverize. This is the other version that we were talking about earlier with the defensive one where we get to do 4 damage and then we return with -3. This one only gets a +1 onto it, not a +2, so you don't really get to use it a few times. It does have 3 charge though, which is kind of nice, and you do have that benefit there. The main usage of this is the I want to get lots of dice to kind of flicker between different spells type thing. And if you've got that set up, it's really good. And if not, then you're probably choosing other stuff instead. My only disappointment with this is the fact that I just don't have a basic kind of increase in the damage, because otherwise I probably rate this a little bit higher. Because 4 for 4 is pretty good, but 6 for 4 is terrible, so yeah. Moving along, we have Rock Slide, deal X damage, and then -1 to a random spell. It's not a bad attack. And the nice thing is you can upgrade it to this, which is what I'm probably doing quite a lot, and you get the benefit of just, you know, doing that. But we've already gone over like offensive spells where I probably end up picking them up straight away compared to this, and they come in the same category as this, but it's not a bad spell. If you do need offensive thing like 6 for 6, 4 for 4, 2 for 2, and the fact you get the reduction and maybe get to roll a 5 or a 6, it's more of a secondary effect though, like a secondary attack rather than a primary one. Moving along though, Sacred Shimmer. Well, this is the thing that caused me to go infinite, because rolling 6s was very, very good for me, and it meant this thing kept going up and up and up in spell usage. And it rolls a die to basically cost itself nothing, which is also really, really good. Just straight up. You can even go for this upgrade, it's not bad either, but the main thing you're doing it for is this infinite combo setup, and yeah, if you've got a setup for this, this is really good. If not, it's not great, but it is a bit of damage where you can roll a 6 into something else, or just roll another die after putting 2 die into it, so it kind of is like a little bit more. I did, you know, 6 damage for 1 die anyway, even with 2 dice thrown into it, so it's just still pretty good. So yeah, not amazing, but does have really high combo potential, and is something to be aware of when you are sort of like doing other things. Sanctified Shell. I've already gone over a lot of stuff where I said like I can put a 4 in there and get 8 and also gain power, or, you know, more armor and gain 12. This is just too expensive for 12. I don't care. The issue with this is it's a random die that becomes a glimmer, not just rolling a glimmer. And we've seen other things cost less than this that do more, that also roll a glimmer die. So yeah, it's kind of not great. Savagery. I like this spell, surprisingly. It's awkward to cast. You only got 1 cost on it, which isn't great as well. The good thing about it is the fact that you do have the extra hit, and you do move in there. It's a more mid-game to late-game spell, so it's always something to bear in mind, where it's like this might be like a secondary thing, and depending on what your playstyle is, you may go for the extra bit because you know you're hitting 3 times to really benefit from power scaling, or you're thinking actually maybe you want something a little bit more defensive and I can use it a few extra times. If you've got a lot of die, that's probably pretty good. If not, then probably going for this one anyway. Moving along, Seismic. Again, do I need to explain? The nice thing about this is the fact it's got so much flexibility built into it that it's just really, really good in that sense, right? So the main thing you got is you got 6 damage to a random enemy, and if I gain Blessing, a -2. We can swap it over to give myself 10 damage to an enemy, and if I gain Thorns, a -2. Or every time I gain Blessing, cast it. If you have power scaling, this is just free casts every day, baby. Every day. So it is something where I'd always bear this in mind. It might be more of a utility thing where you keep it to the side, just allow it to do its thing naturally, and everything else. Well, it's probably not something you cast yourself. If you do pick it up early game, though, it's actually a pretty efficient spell as well, and can carry you all the way through into your mid game, and then it can just be a supporting tool in the late game. So it is actually highly recommend to look at this and think, is it worth me picking this up? And if it's something better, then yes, because 3 casts as well is good damage. It is really good damage. Stalk. This is really nice, but I don't really want to spend a shard into this to get that. That's the issue I have with it. Again, the weakness applied for that for the same thing is not great either, especially for 6, and I can only cast it once per turn, and yeah. It's nice to add if you've got a lot of dice and you need an extra bit to kind of eke the damage out. It can be a really good finisher by itself. Doing it early game is probably not great because you're not really set up to do the damage immediately, so you've got 2 turns to kind of use this if it's cast itself. But again, the free cast is a free cast, so you can't really complain about that really. But yeah, overall not the best spell, but has situations. Thornlash. I like Thornlash for 2 good reasons. Is the fact that the upgrade to it is actually pretty useful, and you can also gain extra thorns out of it. It has good flexibility, is a probably more supportive tool than an offensive tool, So think of it as that utility spell that does a bit of damage and gives you thorns, and that's the way you should probably play this more than anything else spell. If you do need a bit of extra damage, the upgrade to it is actually really useful, because that's 4 damage for a 1, or you're looking at then like 8 damage for 2 and 12 damage for a 3, and you can cast it twice, which is really insane. So again, it's something worth, I say, looking at this could be something that could kind of help you out as well and just carry you more into that sort of early game if you need it with this upgrade, and then you're probably going to get rid of it, or it's going to be supporting until late game. Yeah, but you may even get a game where this carries you all the way through. Tracking. Again, this is something where I'm kind of like, I'm not too sure on, because again, the dichotomy of the card, basically I'm going to gain defense and then I want to burst them down for the turn. Right? It's not great. If I'm using this defensive tool, it's probably not bad, because like putting a 3 in to get 4 armor and then getting some delay block with the upgrade could be pretty good. The upgrade to the march is kind of indifferent for me, because I'm using this when I want to be able to kind of like attack them, not the next turn to set it up for. So yeah, but the 3 again is kind of awkward to cast, so it's kind of lower down in the priority listing for what you're going for. Moving along, aspect of Earth. This is something where it's a really good thing to cast at the end of a turn, but you've got to have the die to be able to cast it. Now, chances are with this one, you're going to swap it over to this anyway, because that's just going to be a lot better, which sets you up for the end of a turn and gives you a good amount of armor. But there is a talk about gaining this, because you cast like 3 or 4 spells, suddenly you are getting a ton of armor, and highly recommend that if you've got the ability to cast this at the end of your kind of casting phase. So yeah, it's something where I say generally look at this card, but you're probably never ever taking it unless you get that one nuanced play style to actually benefit from it. And as you can see, that's never worked for me. So Bastion. I love this card to bits. I genuinely do. The main thing is every time you cast it, it increases by 1, or you can just do this, which late game, like after a few turns or stuff, this just starts scaling so much in regards to armor that it is really worth considering picking up as a utility tool that transforms into your main armor tool late game. It's one of those things you'll probably pick it up between like the 2nd and 3rd acts if you get the option to pick it up. Probably not pick it up any earlier, because fights won't go long enough for you to benefit from this, at least from this upgrade anyway. So it's something to bear in mind. But even then, 5 for 5 that keeps increasing is actually pretty good armor rating if you get those 5s, which is the only downside on this, is getting a 5. But yeah, I really do like it. It's really, really good in my opinion, but I might be overrating that. Moving along, Bloom Bolt. This is one that helped us also go infinite in one of my runs. And, well, no, it wasn't infinite, but we scaled so much in this. The main thing I love about this is the fact that every 6 you rolled increased the damage by 2 permanently for the fight, which is so good and highly underestimated. I kept moaning with Azar that a lot of the stuff was for the end of the turn. I hate that phrase in this game, because it can really just like make you feel that all the stuff you did is terrible and just not worth the time investment. But other than that though, yeah, looking at these two, the extra scaling is really good. The deplete effect to roll an extra die can be also pretty good as well, depending on what you're going for, because that could roll into an extra 6 to give you more damage for the next turn. So yeah, there is good options on either side. I will say, like, having scaling and having more scaling is not as good as just having the base scaling. So always remember that. If I've already got scaling, I don't need more of it in most cases, right? You just need to have some to start you off. You know, it's the thing that once you've got the ball rolling down the hill, you're already rolling. There's no point having extra speed attached to that. Desolation. No. The upgrade of it is pretty interesting. I will admit that. Damage to all is kind of nice, it has that, but you've got to put something extra to get that to work when there are other spells that we've looked at already that just don't need to worry about that. And then the applied days is kind of like, okay, I'm going to put 2 2s in there just to apply 2 days for everything to lower the damage, and then that's 2 die, and you got the same issue I had before. But otherwise you're putting 12 in there just to return 1, or return die. I assume that's both, but, you know. Maybe I am underestimating this a little bit because of that, because I've never really played with it as much. But yeah, I guess if it does return both die, it's not bad. It's so kind of like okay, but then it's putting lots of 6s into it to cast it, and then this upgrade becomes even better because you can get a benefit from the power by wiping the whole board with it. So yeah, but I think there are better ones than this because of just the way it works. Animate. I kind of like this mechanic. I don't think this particular style of it is great, but you can get like some spells or some really high charges on there, and you can deal a ton of damage, which really does benefit from power scaling. It's kind of expensive, but that's fine because it is going to be one of those finisher spells. You can get more scaling out of it or make it easier to cast. It's actually pretty good, but it does have a niche thing where it's like, when are you casting this, how are you casting it? So always bear that in mind. But yeah, you could get some of these spells with like stupid amount of charges on there and then just launch this at them, and oh, that would be great. Moving along though, Glint Glaive, again, this is your blessing payoff, and if you're gaining blessing, take this, just leave it in the background. It's a supporting tool, it's a utility tool, it will just scale until you can cast it, then cast it and one-shot someone. You know, enough said at that point. I don't need to worry about what these do, like giving more damage, allow me to cast it easier. Both are pretty good, but you're probably not doing it. Granite Guard. Now, if you need some defense for particular turns, and you do not have that, this is an excellent choice. The issue with this, in most cases, you're probably going to see this after you've just done a boss fight. And if you're not going to get it on the first one, and you've got some other stuff, which we'll see in a bit, that just are better offensive tools than defensive tools, because you're going to get a lot of easy defense and lower rarities anyway, like you're probably never picking this up. But it does have its uses, so it's always something to bear in mind. Plus 30 damage, or 30 armor. You know, just pointing that out. Really good block you can get on that with that Granite Guard. Infused Potency. I like this a lot. The fact that it just gives you potency, which gives you additional dice rolls, is really good. It's a brilliant utility tool. It's difficult to cast, but like the payoff of it is so good. Plus it gives you one of the dice back, or both. I can't complain. Or make it easier to cast as well. And that's the thing is, like, that isn't even equal. I could put a 5 and a 6 in here and it would still cast. That is so good. Really good picking up. If you're already set up and you just need more die, this is a brilliant way to do it. Maul. Yeah. It's a nice payoff card. Can give you some decent damage. Can make it easier to cast. But you probably already got better stuff by the time that you're looking at this spell. And then you're thinking, okay, I've got to set up myself for gaining that to then gain 5 block if I doubt undoubt damage. So you need power scaling for this, at which point, like, I've got spells that will benefit the power scaling more, and the armor I can gain from other stuff. It seems interesting, probably ways to make it work, but in my opinion, there are just better options you can get earlier than that will do more things. Metamorphosis. I like this. Again, it's a way to gain power. And I would never underestimate this. Even at 3 for a charge, you can gain 15 power quite easy in a turn, depending on the spell. So, yeah. Bear in mind with this. Has some uses. And we've had played with it before and just got a little bit unlucky in some runs. Natural Hardness. I like this spell as well. It gives you that extra bit of defense. So if you've got a lot of small value defensive tools, getting this and upgrading it to this is so good, because straight away you just have this sitting in the sidelines. You don't ever really need to cast it, and it'll just make all the rest of your defensive tools better. Simple as. Probably never going for this upgrade, but still. Just something to always bear in mind. Pox Flare. This is interesting. I like the idea of this. The repeat effect is kind of nice and interesting as well. The 10 damage is very consistent on 3 stacks from Pox, and you can immediately get 2 stacks of it quite easily, which will be quite nice. And yes, that does carry over the Pox to be 3 on 2 hits, which means you get the extra 1 hanging over, which is kind of nice. So yeah, it's a decent spell. I'm never going to say it isn't, but you've probably got better options from things lower end anyway by the time you see this. So it's kind of really interesting. Primal Craze, I did mention this in the past run when I saw it, is just the fact that if you've got a lot of armor, you're either one-shotting them or dying with this, and that doesn't seem good if you can already survive it with the amount of armor that you got, right? At that point, you will eventually get them anyway if you're outscaling with armor. But it does have the payoff card in it. The issue is like getting this in the build with the rest of your setup, which at that point then this won't be cast until like 20 turns later. Bit of a problem with that, but has its uses. As I said, it will have its uses, but probably not amazing. Proliferate. I like this. I like it a lot. because the fact it gives you power scaling and the fact you can recast it again, which means that every turn you gain 2 power, 3 power, 4 power, 5 power, 6 power, the more that you have this buff rate up, the quicker you gain the power, the quicker the better. Like, this alone could just be your power scaling and you'd still be doing fine because you're getting a power at least every turn anyway, and it's going to keep getting better and better every single turn that you do it. This as well is also really useful because you're just going to get an extra 8 out of it, which means that basically this is going to be 3 to cast, which, yes, is great value, or you can somehow make it cast itself. Now, wouldn't that be lovely? But yeah, really good power scaling if you don't have it already and you do see it. Moving along though, Relief. I like this spell again because the 6 Blessing is kind of really useful to cast. The rolling of a die means at least you're probably getting maybe half the value of this cost back. But you really want this upgrade because this will just give you so much extra dice back. Because basically this will be gain 3, then roll dice, and then suddenly I'm like, ooh, look at this. I get 3 dice back anyway, and I get to keep the blessing. And then it will end up like increasing their value as well. So that could also pretty good. The issue is this is probably a net neutral on this, and this is also probably a net neutral, which is the issue I have with it, is the fact that it doesn't really do anything in retrospect when you think about it. But it does have some benefits and combos with this blessing and the rolling, probably more in that aspect, but probably not something you're going to pick up immediately. Revitalize. Again, same issue with this, is the fact that it just gives +1 to all, then gives you a blessing. Doesn't do much. The extra bit on here is kind of nice, but you're probably going to have better options by the time you get to these sort of cut-like spells anyway when you see them, so you'll probably have better options in lower cast to do the similar thing, or the thing that you want it to do, which is probably gain the blessing. Moving along, more spells I'm never a fan of, just going to point that out. Whispering Sheep to gain armor from basically per charge on it is not bad, but we've got ones that do that in other ways and other classes that cost less. And then, yeah, like losing all your armor for the upgrade and stuff is not great when it does morph. Just gonna point that out. And even on the lower cast, like that just becomes what I'd expect it to be, really. And getting more charges doesn't make it any better either to actually morph it. But yeah, not great in the morph sections. Move along, Solidify. Again, I like this. I go like both ways. They either benefit from you power scaling, or if you want to armor scale as well alongside that with any blessing, really good. This is one of those ones where it's worth picking up and keeping in sort of your back pocket, just in case that you do need to think about using it or things like that as well. And if it does slot into the build in the right sort of way that you want it to, it's well worth the extra slot in there. If it doesn't, then don't worry about it. It's worth selling as well and great value. Spirit Arrows, this is your power payoff card. You're probably getting for the upgrade at this and dealing damage 5 times consistently every turn, or even just casting 4 times twice. Yes, this is your power payoff as well, so bear that in mind. If you don't have one already, this might be useful. The only downside of this is 1 damage to a random enemy X times. This random bit can really hurt you, and I've lost runs because of it, so you do need other spells to do damage. Just bear that in mind. Now, last few spells here, Spirit of the Forest. This is kind of one of those ones where I'm like, if you don't have power scaling and you get 2 5s and get 4 power off it, you're laughing. Even 6 power, you're laughing. Extra spells, charges to all as well is kind of nice. I think this also affects itself, so you get to cast this again as well if you have enough dice for it, but it really does count on dice generation, and it's kind of awkward to cast because you probably have other power scaling already. And that's my thing when I said before, is having some form of scaling is better than getting an upgrade to the scaling, right? In some cases, I will have a defensive spell along here that we've already looked at as well, that I'll think, actually, this is better for an offensive spell, this is better for power scaling, this is better offensive spell, this is better scaling. Like, I literally just went through the same ones in the same tier, and I was already choosing stuff above it anyway, which is kind of the problem with it. Stone Meld. Just doubling my block for 7 doesn't seem great, I'm going to say that straight off the bat. It does have that point of where if you really do need it, but by that time you've got to try and be able to get the armor anyway, and that's kind of my issue with it, is the fact that I've got to have a heavy investment to gain that to double my armor, at which point, I want to just double my power. Pretty much. And speaking of doubling power, unlimited power. Okay, so this thing here is kind of another power payoff card. if you just get 1 power at the start of a turn and you can cast this, you are doubling it and doubling it and doubling it. And you're also going for this one because we're doubling it like that. But anyway, yeah, it's power scaling on steroids, just straight up. Just straight up. And that's where you're taking it. And you are going to use this on repeat if you get the option. And lastly, Veneration. Cast all other spells. And then give them +1, or give this an extra thing. This seems interesting. The chances are, if you're putting 18 into a spell, you're probably going to be able to cast every other spell anyway. I'm just saying that. At which point, if I have to put any investment into this, it's because I've already cast other stuff. At which point, if I've got that many die, do I really need this in my repertoire? And that's kind of my argument on it when it comes to that. But yeah, this is probably a little bit longer going over all of Hazel's stuff though. But yeah, I hope it gives a bit of an idea of what you're mainly looking for. In my opinion, the main focuses are around sort of blessing and the blessing mechanics. But you do have a few different kind of wild cards thrown in. And the other bit you're looking at is power scaling and sort of reusing die on repeat as well, which kind of like has some other side bonuses also. There are sort of defensive scaling abilities which you can have in here also, which is kind of nice. So yeah, the main thing you're focusing on really is getting good early defense, power scaling, and then some decent attacks, and you'll probably have a very good run doing that. But yeah, so that's the first look at all of everything else. We've really analysed everything on here as well. Again, if you do enjoy these videos, do leave a like, subscribe to see more, and I will see you for when we do the test run of everything about Hazel. Again, if you take care.